This is the download from Sounds Profitable. The most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Manuela Correa.
And I'm Shreya Sharma.
The download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com. This week, Spotify's place in podcasting, aging out age demographics, what can be learned from Netflix's latest data dump, and lessons from the front lines of podcasting in the Middle East and North Africa. Let's get started. This Wednesday from Brian Barletta at Sounds Profitable. All downloads reported by the Megaphone platform are now incompatible with IAB-compliant downloads. Also, ad delivery, as reported by Megaphone, loses its meaning. Here's a quote from Barletta. Ad delivery pixels often used for attribution are simply fired when the hosting platform confirms they're going to count ad delivery for the specific action and have no certification assigned to them either. End quote. In addition to the IAB changes, Spotify has also recently changed how Spotify Ad Network performs in relation to the rest of their advertising waterfall. As of July 1st of this year, publishers on Megaphone will no longer be able to set a price floor for span. In its current configuration, Megaphone works with 4 tiers: direct sold ad inventory, span, fast, and promo. When an ad is called for, it flows down the waterfall of tiers, and each tier can only compete with itself before either filling the ad request or passing it down to the next tier. Without a price floor on span, it's possible Spotify could take on a bunch of cheap inventory into span and effectively guarantee that impressions will largely stop at the span tier of the waterfall before Megaphone's publishers' programmatic options get a chance at bidding for the impression. Here's another quote from Barletta on where things are likely to go next. But span has its critics. At the IAB podcast upfront, several candid conversations were had about how blind buying into span is, and how it's just not worth it for those invested in the space already. That's not to say it's not appealing for new-to-podcast advertisers or those buying audio and getting a taste of podcasting. But we've garnered enough attention now that many are exploring past single-entity buying. The marketing machine that is Spotify is strong. But are they strong enough to convince advertisers to buy a blended SAI and DAI uncertified for Joe Rogan or Call Her Daddy? And even if they are, do we believe the publishers hosted on Megaphone can individually wield the same authority? I personally don't, which is why I've written this incredibly long article. End quote. Barletta urges publishers on Megaphone to begin evaluating IAB-certified enterprise hosting platforms, such as Acast, Audioboom, Art19, Simplecast, AdsWiz, Omni Studio, Triton Digital, SoundStack, Spreaker, Libsyn, and Dovetail from PRX. They should collect their span revenue reports for the past few quarters and become comfortable shopping around, asking if different hosting platforms have the ability to meet net revenue, along with capabilities to support publisher-led programmatic relationships. The industry at large does not benefit from fragmentation. While it is Spotify's own business and right to choose how to do things within their own app, dynamic ad insertion over RSS is a defined process with rules, expectations, and a decade of industry effort getting it to where it is today. Editor's note, in the initial publication of this newsletter, PRX's Dovetail was not included in the list of IAB-certified publishers. This has since been rectified.
In the May 23rd installment of Ad Exchanger's News Roundup, the subject of TV upfronts and aging demographics sparked conversation about formerly hip brands. Despite pop culture legacies of being popular with younger crowds, several major brands have experienced those younger groups aging in real time. One notable example is the revelation that MTV, once a hub of youth counterculture, now has an average viewership age of people in their 50s. The very concept of age demographics were originally created to segment and sell younger audiences under the premise of forming lifetime customer relationships early. Now they can have the effect of alienating valuable customers. Take, for instance, Julie Alvin's Adweek article about how brands are effectively leaving trillions of dollars in revenue untouched by ignoring women over 40. Marketing campaigns have become so targeted on the extremes of age demographics, they've accidentally left a hole. As Alvin puts it, The moment a woman ages out of the coveted 18 to 34 age range, she's off the marketing radar, until it's time to sell her memory retention supplements when she turns 50. TV is working to rectify issues like this. At a recent upfront, NBC Universal Global Ads and Partnerships chairman Mark Marshall told advertisers age and gender demographics are falling out of favor, and they should target, quote, people who are in the market for your product, unquote. Podcasting is not immune to demographic oversight, as Tom Webster highlights with his Wilford Brimley analogy. Pop culture tends to remember character actor Wilford Brimley as always having been an old-looking man, with one of his breakout roles being him intentionally aged up 20 years with makeup to match his fellow elderly cast members in Cocoon. Pop culture thus presumes Brimley to be his character in Cocoon, not the toughest nails who dropped out of high school to become a literal cowboy and rode horses the rest of his life. Podcasting's biggest opportunity for growth is audiences aged 55 and up, and it doesn't require massive retooling of campaigns or new products to fully embrace. People over the age of 50 still buy meal kits. 36-year-old women still buy mattresses, and they tend to have more disposable income with which to do so than the hip, young crowd. This Tuesday from What I Did Next host Malik Fawad on Entrepreneur. Podcasting has undergone a healthy expansion in the Middle East North Africa region in recent years, though the region's podcasting potential has some hurdles to being fully unlocked. Here's a quote from the article. Quote, the reasons are multifaceted, including a need for more understanding and awareness regarding podcasting's value, a scarcity of content tailored to regional audiences, and a hesitancy among brands to invest. Furthermore, the creator communities in the region remain disjointed. Yet, despite the diverse cross-sections across multiple countries, there's a significant opportunity to build larger, MENA-level communities. MENA here stands for Middle East North Africa. One prime example of a reason brands are hesitant to invest in MENA-based podcasting is a lack of consistent, reliable data on the region's podcasting industry. While the US podcast scene can rely on quarterly reports on details like popular categories or listener behavior, podcast companies in MENA are largely relying on surveys and estimations. Investment in research creating relevant content networks and broadening monetization could help foster an already fast-growing region.
Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but are still worth including in your weekend reading. This week, Rogers Sports and Media to shutter Pacific Content by Connie Thompson. The parent company is shuttering Pacific Content in a move to refocus their efforts on Canadian audio spaces. Next, Sequencing Retail Messaging with Podcasts by Tom Webster. A look at podcasting's place in the business funnel and where it's most effective in a customer's retail journey. Also, podcasts continue to grow in popularity in UK as BBC reveals data insights from Braun Mayer. While the industry overall continues to grow, Gen Z interest appears to stall out in the UK as the difficulty of capturing younger demographics becomes more apparent. Also, Quality over Quantity is a Growth Strategy by Stephen Goldstein. After the wave of quickly abandoned podcasts in 2020, it's more beneficial for producers to focus on more marketing for a smaller number of high-quality podcast offerings rather than producing as many podcasts as possible. And finally, What's Netflix's latest data dump means for advertisers by Bill Bradley. Netflix's latest data report, while impressive, is entirely self-reported, and advertisers would benefit from third-party verification of the data before making any purchase decisions based on it. And that was the download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned, right in your podcast listening app or on soundsprofitable.com/podcast. A quick personal note, this is my last week at Sounds Profitable and here with you all, reporting on the download. I'm happy to announce that my husband and I are expecting, and I'm taking some time off to fully embrace the most important role of all, being a parent. A huge thank you to Gavin for being the mastermind behind the download, to Brian and Tom, and of course, to you, our dear listeners. For the last time, signing off, I'm Manuela Correa.
And I'm Shreya Sharma. This is my final episode as well as a co-host of The Download. It's been such a great time working with Manuela. I also want to thank our producers Brian Barletta, Gavin Gaddis, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting The Download. And one last time from me, thanks to you for joining us. Robot?
Download complete.